Hello all, welcome to another session on cybersecurity. In this session, we'll be taking a look at RSA algorithm. So RSA algorithm comes under public key cryptography. So we'll have a brief look at public key cryptography and then we'll move on to RSA. Let's consider a scenario here. Let's consider two users. One is user A and another one is user B. They are communicating over an insecure channel. What do you mean by an insecure channel? Someone like an hacker will be able to tap their communication and listen to what they are communicating. So in order to communicate in a secure way, user A, what he does is he takes up two keys. One is a public key, another one is a private key. So this public key that he generates is open to all. A, this hacker will know this public key. User B will also get to know his public key. And user A also has got a private key, which is a secret key, which only user A knows. Now, whenever user B wants to communicate with user A, what he does is he takes the public key of user A and he takes the plain text message that he wants to send. So if B is the message, he uses the public key to encrypt that message to a ciphertext. So using the public key, this plain text message was encrypted and then he sends the ciphertext to user A. Now, this ciphertext can be decrypted only using the private key of user A. So user A uses the private key to decrypt this to get the plain text message. Here, an hacker cannot get to know of the plain text message because he doesn't know the private key. So that's how public key crypto systems work, and we're going to take a look at RSA algorithm, which is a public key crypto system. So public key cryptography uses public keys, which may be disseminated widely and it is known to all. That's what we have seen. Private keys, which is known only to the owner. So encryption happens, whenever a user wants to send a message to another user, he takes the public key and then he encrypts and sends that message. And the receiver decrypts it using the private key. So it can only be decrypted with the receiver's private key. So RSA algorithm, this was described in 1977 and the acronym for RSA came from the creators of the algorithm from their names, as you can see. And it's an asymmetric cryptographic algorithm, and this is also called public key cryptography. We have seen what is public key cryptography just in the last slide. So we'll now take a look at the foundation on which RSA rests. Say, if I ask you, what are the prime factors of 35? So you may immediately tell me 7 and 5. So these are two prime numbers and they become prime factors of 35 because when I multiply 7 into 5, I get 35. So it's very simple. What are those two prime numbers when I multiply will lead to this number? So we are able to find the prime factors easily here because we have a very small number and we are used to this number. Suppose if I ask you, what is the prime factor of this 250 digit decimal number? So here I have 250 digit decimal number and I want you to find the prime factors of this number. So it's going to be very difficult, right? How will you find the prime factors of this large number? So this is the advantage. So we take this to be an advantage in our RSA algorithm. So finding prime factors of large numbers is quite difficult. So we'll look at the steps in RSA algorithm. First, we'll generate public key and private key, and then we'll encrypt using the public key. Finally, we'll see how to decrypt using the private key. Let's take a quick look at the rules for generating a public key. We have to select two prime numbers P and Q, and then we have to find the product of P and Q, that is N. Next, what we have to do is we have to select a value for E such that E lies between 1 and pi of P into pi of Q. What is this pi? This is Euler's torsion function. So pi of a prime number is nothing but prime number minus 1. So when you have a prime number given to this function, the Euler's torsion function, for instance 5, so what will be the output? It will be 5 minus 1, that is 4. So when you pass a prime number to this function, the output will be prime number minus 1. So we select a value for e such that it lies between 1 and pi of p into pi of q. And the next condition we have to consider here is GCD of this number we have selected with pi of p into pi of q should be equal to 1. So either we can say this as pi of p into pi of q, or we can say it's pi of n. Now we publish the public key as the value that we have taken, that is e, and n. What is n? N is the product of p into q. So this is how you publish a public key. Let's understand this further with an example. Say let's consider two values, p and q. P is 3 and q is 11. Now we find n, that is p star q. So the value for n is 33. Now our next step is we have to select a value for e. E should lie between pi of p and pi of q. What is p here? P is 3, q is 11. So when you pass a prime number to this function, what will be the output? It is prime number minus 1, so it is 2. Likewise, what is pi of q? 11 is a prime number, so 11 minus 1, you're going to get it as 10. So what is pi of p into pi of q? It is 2 into 10, that is 20. So the result is 20 here. We have to select the value for e such that it lies between 1 and 20. And we should also see to that the GCD of e with this particular value 20 should be equivalent to 1. So this is what I have mentioned here. Pi of p into pi of q is nothing but pi of 3 into pi of 11. So since 3 and 11 are prime numbers, we get the output as 20. And here we have selected the value for e to be 13 because it lies between 1 and 20, and GCD of 13 with 20. What is 20 here? It is pi of p into pi of q is 1. Now we publish the public key as the value e. What is e? 13, and the value of n, that is 33. The next step is we have to generate a private key. Let's see how to do that. So these are the steps in the private key generation. We are going to find the value of d such that e star d mod pi of p into pi of q will lead us to 1. So we know what is e. We have computed e in the previous slide. We know pi of p and pi of q. So we have to select d such that e star d mod pi of p into pi of q will give us 1. So d is otherwise called the modular multiplicative inverse here. So d will be our private key. So we know what is n. We have seen p into q, that is n. And what is d? D is the modular multiplicative inverse of e with respect to pi of p and pi of q. So this becomes our private key. So we need to find d here. We know what is e from our previous slides, that is e is 13. And we know what is pi of p into pi of q. We have established that to be 20. So what is the inverse, modular multiplicative inverse of 13 with respect to mod 20? It is 17. So when you multiply this and you take the mod, you will get the result as 1. So we now know the value of d. So our private key is d comma n. So we have seen an example for private key generation here. So we'll take a look at the visualization again to see what we have generated. Say we have user A and user B communicating over an insecure channel and this hacker listening to them. Now user A has found out his public key and private key. So what is the public key of user A? 13,33, and private key of user A is 17,33. So we have seen how to generate these two keys. So the public key is published to all of them. So the hacker knows the public key. This user B also knows the public key. So what is the next step? User B will be using this public key to encrypt a message and send it to user A. So now we will see how encryption happens in RSA. So now let's see the steps in the encryption process. User B wants to send a message to user A. So we all know the public key of user A, that is 13,33. User B selects a plain text. Say he wants to send this plain text message 4 to user A. So this 4 should be encrypted. So whenever user selects some value, the very important condition is this value that is going to send should be less than n. So 4 is less than 33. So we are fine with this. Our next step is we have to encrypt this value 4. How to encrypt that? This is the expression for encryption. So you get the ciphertext by computing plain text power e mod n. So the value for p, the plain text that is going to send is 4. So it is 4 power 13. What is 13? That is the value of e in the public key of user A. Mod 33. 33 is the value of n in the public key of user A. So when he computes 4 power 13 mod 33, the result is 31. So 31 is the ciphertext that will be sent to user A. So user B has converted this plain text 4 to 31, which is the ciphertext, and he sends it to user A. And we have seen the process for encryption that is given here, plain text power e mod n. Now let's take a look at the visualization again here. So users communicating, and we have the public key published to everybody. This user B uses the public key of user A to convert this plain text message 4 to a value 31, which is the ciphertext, and he sends the ciphertext to user A. Now what is the next step? User A should take the ciphertext, use his private key, and get back this plain text value of 4. Let's see how it happens. Let's go to decryption now. So these are the steps in decryption. Say user A receives the ciphertext 31 from user B. So how the decryption happens is going to use the private key which he has generated. So we have selected the value for D and N in our previous slides, right? So it is 17 and 33. Now we'll see the expression for decryption. That is nothing but ciphertext per D mod N. So what is the value for ciphertext he has received? That is 31 power D 17 mod 33. So when you compute this, you'll be able to get the plain text value 4. So that's how user A decrypts the ciphertext using his private key to get the original plain text message back. So this is how decryption happens. Let's take a look at the visualization again. The public keys got published, and this user converted 4 to 31, sent it back to user A. Now user A using D and N, he was able to get back the plain text value. So what is the disadvantage for the hacker here? The hacker doesn't know the private key, and he will never be able to decrypt the ciphertext. So only this user A can decrypt that ciphertext. Another problem for this hacker is, though he knows the value for n, he'll not be able to find the prime factors p and q when n is a very large number. So I have given this question to you in the very beginning, right? What are the prime factors for this large number? You know how difficult it is to find the prime factors for a very large number. Actually, they were able to find the prime factors for this 250-digit decimal number. The answer is this. So when you multiply these two prime numbers, you will be able to get that 250-digit decimal number. So when you're going to use a key size of 250-digit decimal number, then your algorithm is not secure anymore, because they were able to find the prime factors for that number. So you'll have one question in mind: who is really finding the prime factors for such large numbers? How this really happens? So we have something called this RSA challenge, and you'll be able to find the details about this challenge in this website. Let me go to that site. So this challenge is put forward by RSA Laboratories, and this is just to encourage computational number theory research, and also to come out with the practical difficulty of factoring large integers. So here the challenge is, they are just going to give you a very large number, and you have to find the prime factors for that number. So far, they were able to factor RSA 250, which is a 250-digit decimal number, and which is 829 bits in length, and it was factored in February 28th, 2020. So you want to know the details about this, when you click on RSA 250, you'll be able to find the details about this challenge. So what is the number and what is the result they arrived at? But when you take a look at RSA 260, it is still open and it has not been factored so far. So what is the challenge here? You have to find the prime factors for this 260-digit decimal number. So we can say RSA 260 is secure compared to RSA 250, because we are yet to factor RSA 260. The largest number that is available to factor is RSA 2048, which is 2048 bit key, and that is 617 decimal digits. So you can go and very well take a look at that. So if you can find the prime factors of this large number, you'll be able to get a prize money of $200,000. So what is that you're waiting for? You can start trying this to get this huge prize money. But then what they say here is it may take many years for this number to be factorizable. So that's where when you increase the key size in RSA, you're going to get a very secure encryption strategy. But when your key size is going to be very less, definitely the hacker is going to find the prime factors and get to your private key. So that's all about RSA encryption and decryption. I hope you were able to follow this. Thank you.